Phyllis Wheatley
is freed from slavery.
And we're live. Hi, everyone. We are excited to come to you yet another Friday morning, afternoon, night, wherever you are in this great, beautiful world. We're excited to be in front of you all. I am Christiana. I am one of the hosts that come to you on a weekly basis to bring you extraordinary facts, work, people that are operating in the Black diaspora. I am partner and COO at We the Plug. If you all want to learn more about We the Plug, definitely check us out. We are THA, not THE. So if you look for us online, you can find us at wethepplug.com. Okay, so I am so excited to come to you all yet again with Dell and Ken, the founders of BlackFacts. That's why we're on this live today, because it's so important that you all know who are the operators behind this magnificent work for 25 years, right? We're celebrating all year long 25 years of great work in this space. Ken, Dell, how are you all doing today?
Doing all right. I think Dale might be muted.
Dell is muted.
I am. Okay.
There you go.
Doing well.
No, it's all good. It's cold outside, but other than that, it's good.
Isn't it though? Yeah, but we're staying warm while it's doing its job outside. So what's the fact of the day?
So for folks who are not familiar with BlackFacts, every day of the calendar year, we feature our BlackFacts Minute, a daily Black history fact. And today we are acknowledging one of our first writers and female writers, Phyllis Wheatley.
So, I want to just mention something about this in particular. While the unfortunate tragedy of Phyllis Wheatley's life may seem like a sad story, it is important because she was one of our first published Black authors. And it is important because earlier today, I was on the phone with a woman who heads a charter school in Chicago. And yesterday, I was on the phone with the principal of a school in New York. And one of the things that they both asked me was, we really love BlackFacts. We want to subscribe, for our schools. And they wanted to know, are the facts specific to, Black history or, social studies teaching? So if you have a social studies class and they want to talk about Black history and culture, or if they have a Black history class, which not many schools do, is that, the only place where that would be used? Other than, of course, doing videos in, assembly sessions during Black History Month. And I said, no, because our facts celebrate Black achievements in multiple areas, because our kids today don't know the stories of our Black authors and Black inventors and Black engineers. Mm-hmm. And Phyllis Wheatley happened to be, the fact of the day. And I didn't bring her up in our discussion with the woman from Chicago, but it was interesting. I brought her up in my discussion with the principal of the school in New York. And she was so excited because she's like, this is fantastic because today's kids don't have any idea that people of color contributed in these areas. And so being able to see the faces of these people is really part of the inspirational message. And it allows her, when she's presenting this to the school, to say, listen, this is about arts. This is about engineering. This is about, writing. This is not just about Black history, and it's not exclusionary. It's just celebrating the fact that people of color have done so many things. In our discussion today with the woman from Chicago, she had just found out that it was a Black woman who discovered the vaccine for coronavirus. And she was amazed and pleased that we had a video about her as part of BlackFacts. There's so many little things, and she is an educator herself and had just found this out. There's so many stories of achievement by us that people are unaware of, and we try to make sure that when we engage with schools and when we invite people to go to our site, that they take the opportunity to learn about the greatness of Black culture and our achievements throughout history.
I think it's so powerful, the point that you're making regarding not having just one individual or a hand-picked group of folks that we are celebrating as contributors to the Black movement, and being able to expand and get access to the millions that have contributed, past, present, and obviously will be contributing in the future on many accounts, especially as other generations continue to flourish. I want to
let me mention something.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Because you mentioned that, Christina. Yes.
Yeah.
2021 was such an incredible year. I think in one of our recent episodes, we went through all the different things. We went from basically from like 7 videos on Kwanzaa, at the end of 2020, to over 700 videos within a year in all these different series. And this year, we don't know we have no sense, so we're not slowing down. We're going to be doing series with the help of folks like our esteemed guest. And I say esteemed because Dale and I, most of the time when we talk to folks, they say, oh, you guys are the OGs and this and that and the other. Nah, really, we're like second generation. This brother here today, George Smith, he is one of the real OGs, okay? But, he's going to help us with a lot of Black inventors. We're going to be doing, Blacks in law and politics, and, so that's where we're going, as well as up and coming folks who we will be celebrating as making Black history in days to come, so keep your eye out, for us, please, go to our website and subscribe here. Stay updated on BlackFacts so you'll know what we're doing, because we have no sense, so we're going to keep doing this.
Well, you have all the sense in the world, and that's what we're so thrilled and excited about, and you're very purpose and driven. Speaking of our guests, let's go ahead and bring them on up to the stage. Martin, welcome. You've joined us the past couple of weeks. We're excited to have you back. How are you feeling today?
Pretty good. A little cold, like Dale said. But other than that, pretty good.
How's the sleep pattern? We know you have a little one at home.
She's actually getting a little bit better. We have it's about the feeding, being able to get them to feed at a certain time and then sleep through the night based on, or at least 4 to 5 hours. So sleep for a newborn was like 3 hours, and they are 3 hours in a row, 3 hours in a row. Now it's getting to that 5-hour mark. So that's good. And she was being fed through what's called a G tube. That's a tube in her stomach.
Yes.
But she's now feeding through a bottle because of the G tube and the tube in her nose. When she was in NICU for such a long time, she wasn't able to swallow. So she's swallowing great. We literally just came back from the doctor about an hour ago, and so they were excited that she was feeding a whole bottle by herself, and they didn't expect. It's like what Dale and Ken said about achievements and African Americans. We are constantly expected. And so I didn't know this, but small fact about Black girls. They say if you're going to have a you're going to have a baby to survive the NICU, you want a Black girl first. And then the second highest survival rate is Black boys. So I remind the doctors of that every time they're impressed with her. I'm like, well, you guys told me that Black girls survive the NICU more, so she should be hitting a milestone, no problem. So that's daddy life.
Wow.
And you know what?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that you have made the the brave choice of being so open about what you're going through, because one of our purposes is to put the Black community in control of our narratives. And the Black father, who does what you do, is not part of the narrative.
Right.
So, and I know that you're not that out of the ordinary. So, thank you for being willing to, be so transparent about it. Brothers need to understand, a lot of sisters need to understand there isn't a lot of good Black men out there,
Yeah, I think that what BlackFacts, I love to be able to say in 2023 or 2024, we'll be able to have conferences based on a platform around specific topics, and then because it's a factual based platform, to be able to start the conversation around facts. So, for instance, how many Black men are married? My wife we're 13 years difference. So that generation, 37, millennial, I call it millennial part one, they're very snide at relationships. Even though they're in one and they're happy, they speak for whatever reason, they speak in terms of the collective, right? And they're very snide about it. And so I always say to her, there's about 40% of Black males that are married and in a successful relationship, and that comes from Black and married with kids, Lamar, Tyler, and his wife, but they've done the work. But because it's not the majority, she's very dismissive of that number. How do you dismiss 8 million Black men? No, it's not 12 or 16 or whatever the number of Black males are on the United States. But you can't just dismiss 8 million brothers who are doing the damn thing, and so that's one of my goals, to leave the planet where we stop the narrative of majority, versus what the actual fact is. Yeah. Okay, so no, it's not 55% or 51%, but it's damn sure a lot of people who are actually showing up every day in their children's life, and you can't dismiss it because it's not the majority. So I think changing the narrative and speaking from a factual platform will allow us to have these conversations that are less emotional and more about fact. People say, "Oh, the marriages back in the '60s, or they were the men weren't there then," and it's like, no, they were. This is what had happened was in this situation, that situation, but we don't have the facts. We have this emotional narrative that some of the elders definitely, had, and then some of the elders, like my mother and my grandmother, had wholly. My grandmother moved to New Jersey from North Carolina. She's never divorced my grandfather. She'll never say she passed on, but she would never have said my ex-husband. She would always say my husband, even though they hadn't seen each other in 20 some years. So as far as she was concerned, he hadn't got remarried and didn't have a woman on the side, but they were estranged. And there was a lot of people like that. So those facts, are our history, especially for the new kids that are coming up. These little 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds, they're surfing the net. They're finding these stories and they're looking their truth. These little kids are scary because I think their great grandparents came back to save our butts because they're showing up and hey, hands raised. I want to be a farmer. The little 6-year-old that's that was raised by her great grandmother in farming and now has certification as the youngest farmer in Georgia. This girl here in Philly that's the youngest barber in the world. I mean, she took her brother's place. Her brother dropped out of barber school. She goes to her parents and says, "We can't afford this loss. I'm taking his place." That was at 8. Little 10-year-old boy in Texas that wanted to feed 100,000 people last year, and he got to feed 100,000 people for Thanksgiving. Where are they coming from? And that's those type of facts that we're not really discussing as a community. We're discussing, somebody gets college accepted to 36 colleges, or this football player decides to go from a mainstream college to HBCU. But we're not discussing the next generation that's showing up and doing it consistently, doing the damn thing. So I'm really excited for what comes in 2023 and 2024 once we get this platform well established where everybody knows, oh, let me check BlackFacts. Let me see what the Black Fact of the day is.
Fantastic. And you know what? We all stand on the shoulders of giants like today's guest.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't have a canned intro, for Brother George Smith, but he is. I'm gonna hand the mic over to him, but he is one of the founders of one of the most esteemed Black engineering organizations on the planet. The National Society of Black Engineers, that I remember when I was in Boston, at least 2, maybe 3 times, they brought 10,000 Black engineering students into Boston. So, George is gracious enough to share time with us today. I already said he's got so much info. We're probably going to have to invite him back, but brother, please, I'm going to click the mouse. You tell me what to click on, and let me take a seat and let the master take the stage.
Okay, well, I appreciate the introduction. It really is an honor to be asked for your opinion about anything. Okay, so I appreciate that. We have come a long way, and it's been 50 years since I left high school and started the engineering career path at Purdue University. I majored in electrical engineering and then had an opportunity to work for General Motors in co-op and internship, Amoco, General Electric, Hewlett Packard. And, so I had experiences that were not really available to many Black folks before my era. When you think about the founders of NSBE, we were born in 1953. Well, if you look at the modern civil rights movement, the clock on that starts in 1954. So I feel like we were really the first beneficiaries of the doors being opened through the civil rights movement. Sometimes I think about us as being the perfect age, because by the time we came out of high school, the turbulent 60s were over. America understood that they needed to make a change and open some doors. And we were literally the first generation of post-Vietnam War young men, because the Vietnam War draft stopped in 1971, which was our senior year in high school. We all had to get draft cards. 1 year earlier, we would have been shipped off to Vietnam. There are guys from the 1970 high school yearbook that did not make it back after going to Vietnam. So the other thing that's really important for me to share is that to experience the growth that we had to prepare our students better than they were prepared in the past. So in Chicago, my fellow founders and I were very fortunate to test in to the first selective enrollment school on the south side of Chicago, which is the Black side of Chicago. So we tested into that school. I later learned that it was actually an experiment. They did not expect the Black students to be successful. And yet,
that's exactly what Martin was just talking about. Go ahead, preach.
Yes, they did not expect them to be successful. So once again, I think we were the perfect age because that school turned out its first graduates during our freshman year. And one of those graduates was a highly decorated basketball player. And at that time, our high school had a very competitive basketball team. So this guy was a celebrity just based on that. Um, but he was being honored for getting straight A's 2 years in a row. And he was making an announcement that he was going to Purdue University to study electrical engineering. And so, my fellow founders and I, we were freshmen. I was sitting next to one of my fellow founders, Brian Harris, for probably 30 years after we graduated from high school. I thought I said this to myself, but he said, no, I said it out loud. What I said is I wanted to be like Eric Harris because Eric Harris was on his way to Purdue to major in electrical engineering. I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to win the scholastic emblem for getting straight A's 2 years in a row, and I'm going to learn how to play basketball. So, and the fact is, I played basketball, never on a team, but just, 3 days a week until I turned 58 years old. It became a huge part of my life.
Quick question. Excuse me, George. Should I be showing some of the pictures here?
What I'd like you to do is to use your cursor, start at the top row, and you'll find that I have this tendency to go off on tangents, so you can help me.
No. I just want to make sure that I'm showing some of the visuals because you're talking about folks, and I'm like, I think they're here.
I'm a senior citizen, so I can say that I do that because of my age, but the reality is I was doing this 30 years ago too. Okay.
I hear you.
The same thing with Ken. So
exactly. Yep.
Okay, so this page right here is what inspires me to say that we've come a long way. Ken, you mentioned our NSBE conference, which is held every year. This was the 2019 conference. Everyone on those steps is a graduate. It could be a bachelor's, master's, or PhD, but everyone on those steps is a graduate. Now, this is not all of the graduates that attended the conference, but as you can see, I sort of estimate there's over 200. And so, we still have a narrative today, like, from some corporations, like, well, we don't know where to go to find Black engineers. Well, I'll tell you right now, you go to the National Society of Black Engineers. I have a next door neighbor that graduated from the University of Alabama with a master's in aeronautical engineering, and he went to work for Boeing. This is a kid that I watched grow up from age 3 years old. And he came back and told his parents that his company, Boeing, sent a team of recruiters to the National Society of Black Engineers conference, and they hired 200 engineers on the spot. Okay. So, we have come a long way. 50 years ago, on most college campuses, if there were any engineering students, you may get one graduate every other year. So let's go to the next slide. Because of NSBE's success, Purdue University.
George, someone asked a question on the chat. What high school did you go? What was the name of your high school?
The name of our high school was Lindblom Technical High School. Today, it's called Lindblom Math and Science Academy. And I'm very proud of our high school because even to this day, it is still, it's one of only 2 high schools in the state of Illinois that are in our top 20 high schools. 2 Black high schools that are top 20 high schools. And our high school was named a landmark. They spent $95 million renovating it. They have a NSBE junior chapter, and those students are incredible. They get scholarships from from all of the top universities. And you'll find them at the HBCUs, just all over the country.
George, did you say that we have 2 Black high schools in the U.S.?
No. What I said is that 2 Black high schools in the state of Illinois that are ranked in the top 20 in the state of Illinois. And so by Black high schools, I mean both of these high schools have 70% enrollment of Black students and 80% enrollment. So it's Lindblom and Brooks. Those are the 2 high schools.
In Brooks. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll put that.
Okay. Can we? What's next? What's next?
So what you see here, the point I'm making here is because of the success of NSBE, Purdue University is quite proud. This is the NSBE symbol. Names of the founders are on the plaque. And this is prominently displayed on the Purdue University campus. It looks like a really large statue in this picture. It stands about 4 feet tall, but we're very proud to have this type of recognition on a campus like Purdue University. And it's another example of we have come a long way. Okay. Let's go back to the main screen there.
Oh, which one? Oh, you said the main screen? Okay.
Main screen. Okay. So this is basically the beginning of the Society of Black Engineers. That slide that you just showed there has the SBE symbol. And for those who are familiar with the National Society of Black Engineers symbol, you can see the similarity. The only addition is the addition of the N. But these are the visionaries. These are the shoulders that I stand on, the shoulders that all of my fellow founders stand on. People want to know, how did all this happen? In 1971, Arthur Bond began his minority engineering program at Purdue University. Arthur Bond is on the left. He just happens to be only the 12th Black engineer to receive a PhD in electrical engineering in the history of the United States. So because of that status, he was well known throughout the country and recruited throughout the country. He got all of his degrees from Purdue, and they did a great job of retaining him for their faculty. So without Art Bond as the leader, the enabler, the role model, the encourager, this organization, the National Society of Engineers, it would have started somewhere, but it wouldn't have started at Purdue. The reason I say it would have started is because we had a need, and it was a national need. There were some other chapters, and Art Bond actually was in contact with several other schools that had a Society of Black Engineer type organization. But the student founder is Edward Barnett, the gentleman on the right. You can't tell from this picture, but this brother had some big shoulders. He was the size of an NFL lineman, today's NFL lineman. So he was literally and figuratively the big man on campus, because he was the head of the Kappa fraternity, and he was the visionary who decided that there should be a support group for the Black engineering students. Now, the need we had at Purdue University was that 80% of every freshman engineering class, freshman Black engineering class, would flunk out or drop out at the end of that first year. So he's an example of someone who was a survivor and a thriver even before Art Bond came to influence. And so Edward Barnett decided that it was his responsibility to set up a support group. And so between he and Art Bond, they got the approval from Purdue University to add the Society of Black Engineers as a campus organization. And by the way, that was not an easy task. By some accounts, we've heard they had to go back to the university 4 or 5 times just to get the approval. So, I hold him in high esteem. Unfortunately, both of these gentlemen have passed away. But let's go to back to the full screen, and I'll tell you. Okay. There is a bio of Arthur Bond there.
Which number? Tell me which number.
That's number 1 or number 2.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a biography, and this gentleman it's important for people to understand that this gentleman was one of the finest engineers in the country. His engineering careers actually started in 1957. He was invited and enrolled in Purdue University's first honors engineering class. Think about that, in 1957. Now, I don't know how well your clarity is on your screen there, but he didn't get his bachelor's degree until 1968. So that ought to tell you something about the challenges that he had to deal with. He actually was in a baseball game, got beamed by a pitcher after already hitting 2 home runs, had a concussion, had to leave campus. And it took him so long to recover. He didn't return to campus until 1966. So from 1959 to 1966, he was away. But he served in the U.S. Army Signal Corps, and he had a technician job at Lindy Labs in 1964. And you see that his semiconductor engineering career started with that. And he worked on the Ruby laser and developed its first application, a rangefinder, as a technician. That's before he got his engineering degree. And so in 1980s, he was working on the RCA video disc. In 1984, he was working on doing fiber optics research for Bendix and Boeing. This is the part of his biography that's often omitted in the history of the National Society of Black Engineers. And as an educator, we know about him being a professor of electrical engineering at Purdue University and the advisor to the Society of Black Engineers, but he was also the head of the electrical engineering department at Tuskegee University. And in 1992, he became the dean of engineering at Alabama A&M. And at that time, they had no engineering program. He built it from scratch. So this is the type of guy that we're talking about, who was the ultimate leader, and the shoulders that we stood on. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
Oh, okay.
Just index to the next one.
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
So how did he do it? First of all, it's important to understand he did not have funding from Purdue University. He had to go out and recruit sponsors. And these were the sponsors that showed up and supported us from the very beginning. I think they should be recognized. Next. So I mentioned 1971. These are the 1971 high school yearbook pictures of my fellow founders and I. When we showed up on campus, the engineering enrollment was 28 students. So we were there were about 10 to a dozen freshmen, and that was the entire engineering, Black engineering population at Purdue University in 1971. So you see these young, fresh faces. Many of us hadn't even started to shave yet.
Yeah.
Next. Okay, so what a difference a few years makes, right? Now I have a mustache. I'm in the lower
And a natural.
right.
You had a natural.
And I've got a goatee and sideburns, and so we basically went from transition from boys to men, in those years, those first few college years, and you can see the style difference. Just the hairstyles alone. We made a transformation to bell-bottom pants and platform shoes. We did not look like, America's vision of engineers.
Right.
What we look like is the cast from Soul Train. Okay.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's also
Cotton Comes to Harlem.
I'm not going to speak for my fellow founders, but I'm going to say that's what I felt like. I felt more like someone from the cast of Soul Train than like a Purdue engineer. But we met the requirements, graduated, and were successful thereafter. This is one of my favorite pictures. Now, unfortunately, Stanley, Kirby, and John Logan have passed away. And so when you think about the 7 founders, Art Bond and the Chicago 6, 3 are passed away. It's just a sad thing to, anytime I think about it, and I can't look at any picture of the founders that doesn't have all of us in the picture.
Mm.
Wow.
And so whenever I find a picture like that, I go out and cut and paste photographs of my guys, okay, to complete the picture.
Mm.
Okay,
you know what, George? I just want to say this photo right here is so powerful. Sorry to interrupt you, but I must say this. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this image. And when you were saying, when you look at this, you think, oh, these guys are like Soul Train, something like that. I was even thinking of, growing up watching movies with my dad in the late 80s and 90s as I was coming of age in middle and high school. To me, these were Black exploitation characters. And that's what I was thinking of. And I think, especially for my generation and younger, is to be able to see that these were powerful men who changed the landscape of how not only they were seen in society, but also what we could do in spaces that typically was not open doors to us. I mean, I'm thinking again about this image being brought into the classroom and shown to students.
And Christiana, this was one of the images that I use in the announcements because it is totally on the same page as BlackFacts. We call ourselves, we are unapologetically Black technologists. This is what unapologetic Blackness looks like. If anyone had a problem with them having their photos, that's their problem, not these brothers. And that's a place that I want to see us get back to.
Well, I'll just say this: we were happy with the way we looked. Okay.
Look at the smiles in the pictures. It is clear. It is clear. Just say it loud. Say it loud.
Now,
I'm Black and I'm proud.
Now, I'll also admit my parents did not like that hair. Okay. I had to cut my hair.
I didn't want to ask her, but I wanted to ask: were you allowed to come into the house?
My parents were born in the 1920s. Okay, they did not relate to that haircut. Okay,
ain't play that. No sir, no sir.
But what I want
to get a haircut, George.
But as I look at this picture, what I feel like I need to say is that we had a brotherhood Most of us, well, not just most of us, all of us were either the oldest child in the family or the only child in the family. Okay. And so we had that bond because we didn't have brothers like many people have brothers that are near to their age. We didn't have that. So we were a family, and we became a family long before we arrived at Purdue University. If you see Edward Coleman in the upper left-hand corner, Edward Coleman went to a different high school. He went to Morgan Park High School. But Edward Coleman and I were in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade together. We were in the same classroom for all those years, went to different high schools, and then we show up together at Purdue University. He didn't know I was going to be there, and I didn't know he was going to be there. Okay. And we look at this picture, Anthony Harris and Stanley Kirtley, they were in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade together. Okay. All the way through high school and all the way through college. So just think about that. Okay. So Brian Harris and I we had the same bus route. And so on my first day of high school, we were on the same bus. We didn't know that we were both going to the same place, but we wound up, in not only in the same school, but we had to report to the same home room on the first day of high school. And so we got there early. We got there so early they hadn't even turned the lights on yet. Okay, and so we became best friends right then and there. Four of us in this picture were on the freshman track team. So we became a team. We became teammates literally in the first week of school when we showed up and tried out for the track team. And, as we progressed through high school, many of us had the same classes and we had our own social group. So, in high school, you have cliques. Well, this was my clique from high school. And so what I say is when I arrived at Purdue University, I had a secret weapon. I had an unfair advantage over other students. And that's because, I brought my whole crew was there with me. I didn't bring them, they're independent thinkers. Okay. But my whole crew was there with me. And, so I know these guys, I know basically what they're going to say before they say it, and they know the same about me. And so what I see that has happened in the National Society of Black Engineers over the years is that we have this family bond, family support group that has extended to over 16,000 members, and they have the same spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood and fraternity, as we had from the very beginning. Okay, next slide.
Okay.
Brother George, I have a question for you. When you were talking about being the only child or the brotherhood, and that togetherness you had, and you're talking about your parents' reaction, but what could you go for a few seconds into what was it like leaving high school, going to college, and then coming into knowledge of self, wearing your hair natural, you're at Purdue. Like a lot of people don't understand, back then, particularly, I hear a lot of conversation about predominantly white institutions when it comes to higher learning and the trial and tribulation today. But when you were talking, I was thinking, here's a conservative era, and 6 Black guys show up on campus, and they show up looking, very 1950s. Within a year, there's a transformation. The job, the FBI start following you around because you're engineers now. Think about it.
Right.
You know, you are the vision that Elbridge Cleveland and Angela Davis said was coming. Because you're not only black, you're not only male, but you're smart.
Right.
You're educated. And there's a transformation. And I believe back then, my mother was a Black Panther from Newark, New Jersey. She would say a lot that any black person that seemed to show knowledge of self, you would then investigate it. Because they thought all of us were, they thought all of us were going to overthrow the government. So could you talk a little bit about that, your experience on Purdue campus, having the self-realization? I don't know if you guys start wearing dashikis or not, but I'm just saying, what was it like going to class with this afro, being the kid that came in, maybe not afro?
Okay, so as far as the hairstyle, I'll speak from my perspective. That was just the cool style of the day. Okay, I mean, I understand that it was perceived as a
Political statement,
militant statement. When people first started wearing that. But that was in the 1960s. By the 1970s, that was just the coolest style of the day, and it was really just that simple. Now, as far as acceptance on the campus, there wasn't, from my perspective, there was a black campus and there was a white campus. And there was a merger in the classroom, and in the classroom, especially in engineering, you might be the only black person in that classroom. Okay. So now, I came from an all black environment. I had never interfaced with white classmates. And most of them came from an all-white environment. They had never interfaced with black classmates. But there wasn't any, while there wasn't any socializing as far as I was concerned, there also wasn't any drama. There wasn't any drama. The other students were there to get their education. We went to class and then we went to the library. There wasn't any concern about people calling us names or anything like that. That was what happened during Art Bond's era. And I think in the early 70s, America was tired of all the conflict. Okay. They were tired of it. And so, the doors opened up and, although they didn't expect us to succeed, there were no obvious obstacles. Now, in my case, I believe there were some professors that, if ever my grade was on the borderline, okay, I did not get the higher grade, okay? So, I feel that was, an example, but, that could have simply been because of my personality. I hadn't matured to the point yet where I was comfortable going to professors and asking questions. Okay. I wasn't there yet. Now, some of my fellow founders were good at that. Okay. So all I can tell you is that between the six of us, we each had different personalities. We each had different strengths. And the different strengths that we had contributed to our ability to put together and run a society of Black engineers that was then able to mature to the point where we were able to hold a National Society of Black Engineers conference. Now,
and you know what? And right
sorry,
there, I want to ask a question on, a time check.
Yeah, so I wanted to jump in really quick because there's like an entire history lesson happening right now on this program.
Right.
And we would definitely like to invite you back because I have questions about how could, 6 young Black men decide to even start something like, an organization like that. And what do you see as the change from then until now, and what do you see as where it's going to go in the future? There's a lot in my head that I want to ask about, and I know that we've clicked through like 3 slides out of 15 or 20, but we also only have like 10 minutes left in the show. And so I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to just ask a couple quick nuggets, but be very brief in the answers, because we are short on time, and we have another thing to go to on the hour. So if anyone has any quick questions, folks that are paying attention, don't worry, George will be back, because obviously there's more knowledge that needs to be shared, and just understanding the experience of going to college at that time, and how, what they went through, they understood what people before them went through. And I know that Ken and I, as engineers, because I was an engineering student at Boston University, had no idea about some of the challenges, because it had become just normal. There was a big push when I was in high school of, people Black students going into engineering as a career path, but had no idea of the things that you went through to start NSBE as a generation before us.
Right.
So there's lots of questions. I'll let everyone else jump in. At the 55-minute mark, I'm going to have to cut it off so that we can just wrap things up for the day.
Okay, shall I answer the question you posed?
Yes, please.
Okay. So how did we do it? We had Art Bond's Constitution. We had the benchmark of a Black Society of Engineers at the University of Michigan. We had the benchmark of the Society of Women Engineers at Purdue University. We established an executive committee, president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and we also established what I call now execution committees. And so the execution committees were a projects team, and that team is essentially the same as what we now call the convention planning committee. So the project manager was responsible for any programs that we established, and there were 3 big programs that we were able to actually pull off. We also had a newsletter, and it was my job to chair the newsletter. And we were heavily influenced by what Art Bond wanted us to do. Art Bond said he needed a recruitment brochure. So as a newsletter chair, that was my first objective. And I got folks to volunteer and put together a recruitment brochure. I emulated two documents. I emulated the Purdue University recruitment brochure, and I emulated Jet magazine. Okay, and I knew that I had to have pictures, to make it exciting. So
hold on. You can't get past that, because when the question was asked about the hairstyle, right? You said that's what was cool. I'm like, I'm away from home. There's girls here. I want to look cool, because honestly, that's why I did electrical engineering instead of computer science at MIT. That's what that calculation was. So when you say you modeled by, went by Jet, brothers are like, say what? So please explain that one. Please explain that one.
Okay, well, the wealthiest Black man in America was John Johnson. He was the owner of a media company that published Jet magazine and Ebony magazine. And those magazines were on every coffee table of every Black household in America that I ever walked into. And so when I put together the recruitment brochure, and then later our first newsletter, I actually benchmarked the layout of JET for the recruitment brochure, and I benchmarked the layout of Ebony magazine for the newsletter.
I understand. So you did not have a beauty of the week. I said, Christiaga, get me when we get all like
listen, we're not even gonna take it there, Ken. I knew where you were going, and that's why I was smiling, and I was like, I'm
and you know what? Last year,
before we wrap it up, because I know Ken. Listen. As you all tune in every week, you will see Ken is very colorful with his storytelling, which we appreciate as well.
All right.
I can see that we're going to run out of time because of the way I talk, and I'll just say there were three big programs. We had an equal opportunity luncheon that was a campus-wide equal opportunity luncheon that was hosted by the Society of Black Engineers and the Society of Women Engineers. So that was our first event. It was a joint event. The president of the university was there. And then we had a corporate banquet. And this is where we invited all the corporations that were donors. We had sponsors. We had at least 20 different companies that paid to sponsor that program. So we brought those corporations in. We brought the students in. They had informal conversations over dinner, and those informal conversations turned into formal job offers.
Wow.
Okay, so those two events established us as and established a reputation for the Society of Black Engineers on campus. Because of Art Bond's recruiting efforts, we grew from 28 to over 100 Black engineers. And so, the major corporations in America were interested in us. And so how did we go from the success of the Society of Black Engineers to the National Society? Well, keep in mind that I went to a technical high school. Many of my classmates went to other engineering schools. When we would come home for the breaks, we talked about our environments on campus. And I can remember Michael Joshua, after he learned what we were doing at Purdue University, Michael Joshua, who was a mechanical engineering student at University of Missouri, Rolla, said, "Man, I wish we had something like that on our campus." And so that was, to me, that was the stimulus. We were young men who thought we could do anything at the time. And so we said, yeah, let's take it national. Okay. And then we set the wheels in motion. In our first newsletter, we actually announced that we had a plan to go national. It's all recorded. And
sorry to cut you off, but I think we should pause there. And George, are you available to come back next Friday and do the part 2?
I think so. I have to look at my calendar.
If not next week, the week we'll come up. We rolling into Black.
Yeah, if not next week,
it's an open invite, sir.
Yeah. And maybe we need a part 2 and a part 3. But I want to thank you so much for your wisdom, the time. I'm going to toss it to Dale to leave us with a call to action. What do we want to leave the folks with, Dale, as we're closing out this live?
So thanks everyone again for participating in this live session. We're going to come back every week with something new and exciting. We hope that you learned a little bit about history here. We will be learning from George and putting more Black engineers on BlackFacts as well. We ask that as we move into Black History Month, that you look at your schools that you're affiliated with, schools that you went to high school with. If you want them to learn about Black history and Black culture, if you want them to learn these stories, then have them go to blackfacts.com/schools so they can get an idea of how to include our stories in their mission and in their classroom studies, because our history is important and our message is important. And so we need your help to continue to spread the word. Thank you again. Well, I'm
Thank
going to have
you.
to be dropping off right now because I have another meeting to go to.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a
Can't
great
wait
weekend,
for next
everyone.
Friday.
Yes. Thank you
And
so
what is
much.
it, Martin? What do you always say? Stay black.
Stay black.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.